Before Anne Boleyn's tumultuous love affair with Henry VIII, she fell deeply for another Henry, Henry Percy, the 6th Earl of Northumberland. Their romance blossomed and nearly wed, but political pressures tore them apart. Anne might have avoided her tragic fate with Henry VIII had their love endured. Percy, forever haunted by their failed union, served on the jury that condemned her, a painful reminder of the love that almost was. Born around 1502, Henry Percy was the eldest son of Henry Percy, the 5th Earl of Northumberland, and Catherine Spencer. Through his mother, he was first cousin to Sir William Carey, who would later marry Mary Boleyn, Anne Boleyn's sister, weaving him into the tapestry of one of England's most infamous love stories. Little is documented about Percy's early years, but like most noble boys, he was likely educated in matters befitting his future role as an earl. He would have been trained in courtly etiquette, governance and religious duties. As a young man, Percy entered the household of Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, King Henry VIII's trusted advisor, as a page, an enviable position for an aristocratic youth, offering invaluable exposure to the intricacies of court life. Wolsey soon recognised Percy's talents, promoting him to the role of secretary, a significant step up for a young man aspiring to influence. Percy would have gained first-hand insight into the inner workings of English politics and courtly power in this capacity. It was an unparalleled education in ambition, governance and statecraft, placing Percy in the orbit of the kingdom's most powerful men. With his son's promising position and connections, the elder Percy began contemplating Henry's future, particularly securing a suitable marriage. This pivotal stage would soon intersect with Anne Boleyn's ambitions, setting the stage for the love story that almost changed history. Arranged marriages were commonplace in the 16th century, yet mutual happiness was rarely a priority. It wasn't unusual for brides and grooms to dislike or despise their future spouse, but it's rare to find a couple as unhappy as Henry Percy and his future wife, Mary Talbot. By 1516, Henry Percy's father had arranged his marriage to Mary, daughter of George Talbot, the 4th Earl of Shrewsbury, and Anne Hastings. This match was meant to secure alliances and maintain the Percy family's noble status. As with many aristocratic unions, we know little about how they initially reacted to the news of their betrothal. However, it's safe to assume that, as with most young couples in arranged marriages, they faced anxieties and uncertainty about their future together under the weight of societal expectations. What is known is that their union became increasingly strained, with both partners openly expressing their unhappiness in the years that followed. It was far from the harmonious alliance their families had hoped for, laying the groundwork for a turbulent marriage. In 1519, 17-year-old Henry Percy was knighted by the king, a great honour that boosted his status and should have delighted his betrothed, Mary Talbot. However, Mary's happiness was short-lived. Within a few years, Henry's affections had shifted to another lady, Anne Boleyn, the captivating daughter of Thomas Boleyn, the Earl of Wiltshire. This budding romance would soon overshadow his engagement, leaving Mary behind and forgotten in Henry's heart. By February 1522, Anne Boleyn had returned to the English court from France, where she took part in a court masque, playing Perseverance alongside other prominent young women. At this time, Henry Percy was serving as a secretary to Cardinal Wolsey, granting him access to Queen Catherine's chamber and her ladies-in-waiting, including the intriguing Anne Boleyn. Before Anne's return, her father Thomas Boleyn and Cardinal Wolsey had been negotiating her marriage to her cousin, James Butler, to resolve a family dispute over inheritance. Meanwhile, Henry Percy remained betrothed to Mary Talbot. When Henry Percy and Anne Boleyn met in 1522, their connection developed quickly. By 1523, they had entered into a secret betrothal, defying the expectations and arrangements set by their families. This act of defiance against their father's wishes was bold but ultimately reckless. Cardinal Wolsey discovered the secret engagement and swiftly intervened, outraged at their disobedience and forcing them to end their relationship. The consequences were severe. Percy was forced to marry Mary Talbot, while Anne's match with James Butler never materialised, setting both on paths filled with heartbreak, political intrigue, and ultimately tragedy. The emotional toll of Percy's forced marriage and the shattered dreams of a life with Anne cannot be overstated. Henry Percy's situation became complicated because he was already pre-contracted to Mary Talbot when he secretly betrothed Anne Boleyn. It put both him and Anne in a precarious position. As the law was clear, the consummation of a pre-contracted relationship was equivalent to a marriage in the eyes of God, making it nearly impossible to dissolve. Some couples might have consummated their union before the wedding, making the pre-contract unbreakable. Anne Boleyn, meanwhile, was not formally pre-contracted to James Butler at the time, meaning her engagement to Percy didn't violate any legal bindings. When Henry Percy announced his desire to marry Anne Boleyn, those around him were outraged. His pre-contract with Mary Talbot meant any marriage to Anne would be invalid without an official annulment. As soon as he discovered the secret betrothal, Wolsey immediately summoned Percy and reprimanded him harshly in front of his entire household. The public scolding was a deeply humiliating experience for Percy, a powerful reminder of the rigid expectations of noble duty and obedience. Ultimately, Percy's defiance was crushed and he was forced to abandon Anne, leaving both to face the consequences of this forbidden love, which would echo throughout their lives. Contrary to the popular belief that King Henry VIII himself blocked Anne Boleyn's marriage to Henry Percy out of jealousy, the truth is more mundane, yet telling of the power dynamics of the time. The betrothal between Percy and Anne occurred in 1523, 3 years before Henry VIII showed any interest in Anne. It was Cardinal Wolsey, along with their fathers, who quashed the match. Wolsey, a formidable figure not to be crossed, quickly informed Percy's father, who harshly rebuked his son, calling him a proud, presumptuous and unthrift waster. Ultimately, the match was seen as beneficial only to Anne and Henry Percy, and more was needed for the ambitious families involved. Under pressure, the young lovers were forcibly separated and the betrothal was terminated. As a punishment, Henry Percy was forbidden ever to see or speak to Anne again and was ordered to proceed with his marriage to Mary Talbot. Anne, meanwhile, was sent back to her family's home at Hever Castle in Kent. It was a strategic removal from court to avoid further scandal, though this allowed her to return later to court as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. The impact of this forced separation was devastating. Henry and Anne were left heartbroken, which marked the beginning of Anne's lifelong resentment toward Cardinal Wolsey, who had destroyed her first real love. This hate would later play a part in Wolsey's downfall when Anne's influence over Henry VIII started to grow. Henry Percy married Lady Mary Talbot as his father wished, but the union was doomed from the start. Henry was still resentful of being forced into a marriage with a woman he didn't love, and Mary likely felt the sting of being a reluctant second choice. From the beginning, their marriage was deeply troubled. Percy's father and Cardinal Wolsey watched him closely, wary after his disobedience to Anne. They controlled many aspects of his life, even placing Wolsey's servants in Percy's household to monitor him. Though dutiful to her father's wishes, it's easy to understand her resentment. She had married a man who wished he were with someone else. In 1527, Henry Percy's father died, making him the 6th Earl of Northumberland and elevating Mary to Countess. It coincided with Henry VIII's increasingly public infatuation with Anne Boleyn. While there are no records of Mary's opinion, she must have despised the attention Anne received, seeing her rival rise in status and even captivate the king. It would extend Anne's influence, and her family became powerful, which likely deepened Mary's resentment. Their marriage soon broke down completely. By 1528, Percy accused Mary of spying on him and reporting back to her father. Meanwhile, Mary's father feared that Percy was mistreating her and even suspected him of planning to poison his daughter, believing Percy might have wanted to be free to marry Anne Boleyn. Percy, incensed by these accusations, cut off all contact between Mary and her family, further isolating her and escalating tensions. Adding to Percy's misery was his deteriorating financial situation. He had surrendered management of his estates to Wolsey, declaring himself sick in mind and body, which left him deeply indebted to the crown. He was likely suffering from severe depression, compounded by his failing marriage and lack of a male heir. In 1530, following Cardinal Wolsey's arrest for treason after failing to secure Henry VIII's divorce from Catherine of Aragon, Henry Percy personally arrested his former mentor. However, even Wolsey's death did nothing to repair Percy's broken marriage. He remained trapped in bitterness, financial ruin, and heartache. His once promising future now overshadowed by regret and unfulfilled dreams. For Percy, there was no return to happiness. His love for Anne Boleyn had cost him dearly, and even as Anne moved on to greater heights, Percy remained stuck in a loveless, agonising marriage that he could neither escape or mend. In a desperate bid to escape her miserable marriage, Mary Talbot sought an annulment, claiming Henry Percy had a pre-contract with Anne Boleyn, rendering their union invalid. This accusation came after a heated quarrel, during which Percy confessed wishing he had married Anne instead. Mary seized this as proof of an existing pre-contract and believed it would finally end her detested marriage. Mary's father discussed this allegation with Thomas Howard, the 3rd Duke of Norfolk, who relayed the troubling news to his niece, Anne Boleyn. Anne was on the brink of becoming Henry VIII's second wife by this time, and any suggestion of a pre-contract with Percy could ruin her chances of marrying the king. Determined to protect her position, Anne requested an official inquiry with the king's permission. Henry Percy was summoned before the council, where the Archbishop of Canterbury questioned him. Swearing on the sacrament, Percy passionately denied ever being pre-contracted to Anne. His denial was convincing, and the council declared his marriage to Mary valid, much to Mary's frustration. This outcome preserved Anne's path to queenship, leaving Percy trapped in his unhappy marriage. By 1535, realising he'd never have an heir, Percy wrote to Thomas Cromwell, requesting that the king be named his heir. This decision is puzzling, as Percy, who had 2 younger brothers, Sir Thomas and Sir Ingelram, could have both inherited the earldom. Perhaps estrangement, jealousy, or distrust led him to bypass them entirely. In 1536, tragedy struck when Anne Boleyn was arrested, tried, and executed on charges of treason and adultery. Despite King Henry VIII's once passionate love for Anne Boleyn, their marriage ended in tragedy. After giving birth to Elizabeth, Anne's subsequent pregnancies failed, and she couldn't provide the son Henry desired. Forced to witness Anne's reputation destroyed, Percy knew she was innocent, but could do nothing. This tragic year marked the final blow to Henry Percy, as his life descended into sorrow. When it came to deliver the inevitable guilty verdict, Percy collapsed in court and had to be carried away, overwhelmed by grief and likely his worsening health. It's unclear if it was heartbreak or illness that felled him, but it's evident that watching Anne condemned to death was a devastating moment he never truly recovered from. If you loved our video on Henry and Anne, you won't want to miss this next one. Click on the screen now to explore the untold stories and hidden secrets of another fascinating figure with a story to tell. Get ready to uncover more historical gems and intriguing royal tales. Your next adventure in history starts right here.